creeps! Andy here, and today I have my February reading wrap-up for you guys. So not only was this one of the most diverse months that I've ever had reading-wise, but I also have a question for my dark romance gals out there. I need a little help from you, so if you guys could give me some help toward the end of the video, I would super appreciate that. But let's just kind of jump in to all the books that I read in February. So the very first book that I read, well, I listened to this one on Audible. This was for my friend book club. This is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. This one, it just was not a book for me, if I'm honest. I understand why people like it. It's just like a cute, easy, fun read. You're sitting out by the pool and, you know, there's not too much going on in the story and it's quick and easy, and I get it. I understand why people like this one. But yeah, it just wasn't really a story for me. First, the title, People We Meet on Vacation, I thought it was about, I mean, call me crazy, but people that we would meet on vacation. And it's not really about that. I mean, not to say that the title doesn't make sense, and it does at the end of the story. It all makes sense. I'm not saying that it's a bad title, but I'm just saying that I envisioned something different from the book. But really, it's just about this girl and this boy. They've been friends for a long time, since college, and it's about their, I think, about 9 different years of their vacations together. So not exactly what I was expecting from the book, but that's fine. It is a romance type of book, and I think that you're kind of there to root on these people, but I gotta be so honest, I did not like this guy character, and it's not that he's a bad character, but he just reminded me so much of myself, just very particular and likes things a certain way, and I just could not get into the story because I would never ever date anyone like me. You know, so it was just really hard for me to like him, not like him as a character, but like him as a romantic partner. I think a lot of the times when people read romance, you're either rooting on the characters, like you want to see them fall in love, or you're putting yourself in that position, or what have you. I just couldn't get into it because of that. And so, yeah, for those reasons, it just really wasn't for me. It's just kind of a very basic whatever story. But again, it's just like not my type of story. I'm not saying that it's bad or poorly written or anything. I'm just saying it's not for me. But I get why people like it, and I get why it's a fun, easy pool read. However, a book that is for me, I read The Autumn Springs Retirement Home Massacre by Philip Fracassi. Oh my god, I loved this one. This one was so good. It's about a group of retired people at a retirement community, and people start being murdered off one by one. No one's really taking them seriously, and you know, it's looking like accidents and stuff. But there's a group of people at this community that are like, something's going on here. But no one's really paying attention to them because they're retired old people. Who cares? And I think that's kind of the whole metaphor behind the story. So one, it's very brutal, especially for a group of old retired people getting murdered. It's very brutal. But at the same time, it has heart, and it really touches on issues that retired people can face. It talks about how like these people gave up their lives or their careers or their dreams or whatever to have children and raise these children and give them the life that they deserve. And then once they need something in return, they're just kind of dropped off at this community and not really thought about. They're not taken seriously by members of staff or the facility members. And it really does take like a special outside person to kind of see them for actual people, which is horrific. And I think like we really do fail our elderly in the US specifically, but I'm sure elsewhere as well. But we really do. We do kind of treat them like a nuisance and not like people, and not like they have the knowledge and the experience of life that we all don't have. This story is very brutal and bloody and just kind of like a fun, bloody good time. But I also do think that it has a lot of heart and does touch on a lot of serious issues. And I think that the whole kind of metaphor behind the killings is just how the elderly are treated and neglected, and how we kind of fail them in our society. So absolutely love this one. You guys know Philip Fracassi is one of my absolute favorites. Next, I read The Haar by David Sodergren. This one's about this very small little island. People have lived on this island peacefully for a very long time. These tiny houses, kind of like farm lifestyle kind of houses. And you have these rich, just like piece of shit men, billionaire assholes, with no morals, that'll do whatever it takes to get ahead, and they lie and they cheat their way to the top, and they tread on all the, you know, quote unquote little people behind them without a care. They just don't care. They own the police, and they have corrupt officials, and you know, the criminals are in power and all of this stuff, and they're trying to take over this island, this community. So they're buying people out, and when the people refuse, they're basically bullying them. I will say I have been really enjoying these kind of satisfying books to read about these horrific people that are running the world kind of getting what they deserve in some capacity. I mean, I think we can all agree that that's what's going on in the world. The entire world is being run by corrupt scumbags. And so it is very satisfying to be able to read a book like this and connect with it and feel some semblance of something when I think like every day in the world we're stuck reading headlines and horrific things are happening and horrible people are in charge. You feel like things will never change, you know? You feel like there's nothing you can do about it. You feel like, oh, this is just the way the world is, and it's not. And so it feels very satisfying that you can see some sort of change, even if it is a small amount, happen to these horrible people. Next, I read The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. Unpopular opinion. This one, again, was not for me. There's gonna be a few unpopular opinions in these videos, but it is what it is. And you know, like it doesn't matter if we have different views on books. I mean, that's the whole point of reading, is finding what works for you, you know? So again, just because a book's not for me doesn't mean it's a bad book. It just wasn't for me. So this bad boy right here, it's about these four friends, again, a retirement community, but this one's more of a swanky upscale community. They get together every Thursday and they try to solve murders. And so when someone in the town ends up dead that they kind of have some connection to, they go on this whole journey to try to figure out who murdered him, right? So that's the storyline. But then you have all of this other stuff that happens in the story, and none of that stuff really at its core matters to the point of the story. What I'm saying is, if you cut out 80% of the story, it would start and end in the same place, okay? And at first I'm reading this and I'm like, maybe I'm just too American for this, which is completely fine. You know, maybe it's just not a book that'll be popular to some Americans, and that's great. But no, it wasn't just the writing style, it wasn't just the way things were set up, it really was the plot that bothered me more than anything. So, unfortunately, I can't go into too much detail because I'll give things away, but I'll be as vague as I can about it. But I did like that it was sad, and it did, again, kind of bring to life some of these issues that elderly people face. But I think other books do that better. I think this book did it way better. And I think also the juxtaposition between reading a book that is for me and, you know, a thriller book, which is a genre that I already kind of have a hard time reading, and the books that are kind of, I mean, they're both at their core old people trying to solve a murder. And this one just did it for me, and this one just did not. So I feel like the juxtaposition between them made me not like this book even more. And also, I was reading this while I was recovering from surgery, so that may have had something to do with it. I don't know. I will also say that the Martini Club by Tess Gerritsen does that better too, that elderly people, not in a retirement community, but elderly people solving crimes, I think is done way better in that book as well. And I think the issues of elderly people are represented a little bit better in this Philip Fracassi book and that Tess Gerritsen book than they are in this one. Although it does touch on some things, and I do appreciate that. You know, there's definitely a little talk of like losing the people that you love in different ways and things. So I did appreciate that. One thing that really drove me crazy, and maybe this again is just because I'm too American, I don't know, but the way that they said each other's names every 5 fucking seconds drove me up the wall. So for example, it would be 4 friends in a room. I'm just making up names here. These aren't the characters' names, but it would be like, Robert, would you like some tea? Why, yes, Janet, I'd love some. Here you go, Robert. It's like, that is not how you talk to people you know. It just took me out of the story. It drove me absolutely crazy. I don't know, maybe that's how elderly people talk. I also didn't really feel connected to any of the characters. And this was one of my major issues with the book. It's less about them being good at solving crimes and following clues than it is about their connections. That's the only reason why they gain any information at all, is because one lady has a lot of connections. That's it. So this one is just kind of normal people fighting and like being like, no, we deserve to be heard, and something weird is going on here. The Tess Gerritsen one is a bunch of retired CIA agents that know what they're doing, but people don't believe them because they're old and useless to society, but they're smart and they're skilled and they're, you know, retired spies, so they still have all these valuable tools at their disposal. This book, it's just one lady who can call up anyone she wants and have them do weird things for her, and no one bats an eye. And so it's not really that they're good at solving murders. It's not that they're good at figuring out clues. It's just that one lady has a lot of connections. Her previous job was a mystery. I'm sure you'll find out later in the book. Yeah, so that would kind of like made me less interested in the characters as well. Then the ending really bugged me, guys. It really freaking bugged me. I can't go into it. I wish I could tell you exactly why it bugged me. but the ending really pissed me off. And like I said, all of this stuff does not matter to like this stuff. And that's all I will leave you with, I guess, because I don't want to ruin anything. But the ending kind of irritated me. That's just me. Okay, next up, what else did I read? I read Birthday Party Demon by Wendy Dalrymple. This is about 3 friends, and 2 of them accidentally get their friend possessed. Whoopsie, I hate when that happens. And her friend that's possessed by a demon sends them into this 90s magazine. It takes place in the 90s. So it's just very nostalgic. You know, you have paint puff shirts, renting movies, sleepovers, mini backpacks, blood sisters, light as a feather, stiff as a board. Just, I mean, so nostalgic, simpler times. It was such a blast to read. I read this one again while I was recovering, and it was just the perfect, I don't know, that was weird. My camera said it was too hot, so it stopped working. Anyway, I don't know what I was saying, but it's a cute book, and it felt like an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark or Goosebumps, but for us 90 gals, so it was just perfect. Super cute. Okay, next up, I read Scanlines by Todd Keisling, and I gotta be honest, I fucking loved this book. I was blown away by this one. This was so good. It's hard to find a book that creeps me out, but this one creeped me out. It really did. It was fun and weird and disturbing, and it actually had a lot of depth for how short the book was. I was thinking it was going to be a pretty surface level horror book because it is quite short, but it was great. It's about this group of friends that's haunted by a videotape of someone's suicide, and the tape inevitably ends up spreading, and it causes other people to do the same thing. So I think there's a lot that you can read into it and kind of analyze and make meaning of for yourself. It could be about addiction or the effects of the internet, technology, depression. There's also some comments on like socioeconomic status and fitting in, and the uncharted world of the internet. I think it's a pretty interesting book to read as someone in my generation. You know, it reminded me a lot of adolescence and kind of like the start of the internet. Not that I was around before the start of the internet, but definitely before it was used in every home. You know, I didn't have a cell phone until, well, we also didn't have money, but I didn't have a cell phone until high school. So I definitely lived in a life prior to having technology at my fingertips constantly. And then obviously now in the real world, in the new world where it's everywhere. So I think it was an interesting book to read kind of from somebody of my generation who got to live in the past, but also in the future. You get what I'm saying, technology wise. But yeah, it definitely reminded me of just kind of like being a kid and having that first access to the internet and how much life has changed since then. And yeah, I really love this book. I thought it was fantastic. A short read, but a great one. Next up, I read The Night Guest by Hildur Nutsdotter. I'm not 100% how to pronounce her name, but again, oh my god, I loved this book. And this one I kept seeing at Barnes & Noble, and I never read it. It has kind of low reviews, and it was one of my favorite books. Like, I really loved this one. It was so fun. It's, again, another short read, and it's about this woman who is sleepwalking at night, and she doesn't know where she's going or what's happening, but it seems like, or it feels like someone else is kind of controlling her, right? And she comes back with bruises or blood on her hands or all these weird things that are happening. And she's trying to like have a relationship with people and be a normal human, but she's not sleeping, and a lot of strange things are happening. This book is exactly my type of story. Exactly. The author does not tell you too much, and you are able to kind of guess what's happening, and you're able to, I guess, kind of draw your own conclusions, but I feel like there's a pretty straightforward answer of what's going on. But exactly my type of book where the author is like, hey, you're not stupid, you can figure this out. I'm not going to spell everything out for you. I respect that. I really liked the writing. I really liked the way it was written. It was written kind of in these little chunks, and you get just little flashes of what's going on. And it's not too in-depth or too detailed. I understand it's not going to be a story for everyone, and that's completely fine. But it is my type of story. It was creepy and eerie and just plain fun. I love this one. Again, another one that you can kind of sit and read in one sitting. Next, I read Play It As It Lays by Joan Didion. This one I actually picked up because I was looking at specific books and I wanted books like that book that I read, and this one came up. It had good ratings. I said, okay, I'll read it. Again, really enjoyed this one. This one is about a woman in the 60s, and she is married to a famous director, so she kind of had her 15 minutes of fame being an actress, but now she's kind of doesn't really know where she belongs in her career, and her marriage is kind of falling apart. This one is such a minimalistically written, nihilistic story. Again, just like right up my alley. The subtext of the story speaks louder than the words on the page. And I also really like books like that as well, where you can read a story and it's very plainly written, but it's what's in between those lines that kind of either pull on your heartstrings or intrigue you to read the next page, want to know what's happening and what's going on in the story. So I really love books like that, and I think it's quite impressive when an author can do that successfully, where they can write a story, but it's also kind of what's behind that brings out all the emotion. And I love this one. I thought it was a really amazing story, and I rather enjoyed it. Nihilistic and like, you know, a sad story. I'm not saying it's like a happy story by any means, but it is like exactly the type of story that I like reading. So yeah, I really enjoyed that one. Next, I read my cozy mystery for the month, Raspberry Tart Terror. Someone gets murdered, Lottie Lemon solves it, blah, blah, blah. After that, I read If on a Winter's Night a Traveler by Italo Calvino. This book is weird. I am going to be so honest with you. This book is strange. I don't even know if I can explain this book to you. It starts off like a traditional story. There's a guy and he works for someone, and his whole job is to go to this train station and switch suitcases with someone. But that other person doesn't show, so he ends up going to a bar instead. And these stories stop at their climax. So, you know, something's about to happen and then the story ends and you never hear from that story again, okay? And this happens over and over again throughout the story. And then you have these two characters who are at a bookstore and they meet each other because they tried to read On a Winter's Night a Traveler, and the book ends and a new book begins, okay? So then they go on this whole journey where they figure out the books are, you know, faked, or this person over here wrote it, but they published it under this name, but it's actually that book and it's actually from this writer over here. And it's just the wildest, most intricate, strangest book. There's a few things I'll say about this one. I think at the core, it is a celebration of reading. It's about the journey of reading, the joy of reading, the beauty of reading, but it is a weird book. I will say that, and this won't be a book for everyone. And I think it will be one that I'll have to reread again, because I really thought that this was a different story than it was. It's one of those that really threw me for a loop. And I did like the meaning behind it, and I thought that it was cool, but man, did it throw me off. So not a book that, you know, it's a short book. It's like 250 pages. Definitely not a book I could pick up and read in 2 days. I definitely read this one slowly, tried to figure out what's going on along with it, you know. So it's definitely one that I think is going to take multiple reads, but I do like the meaning behind it and kind of the celebration of reading and having all of these stories end at their climax. The reason why I love Kurt Vonnegut so much is because he knows the rules of literature so well that he bends them, you know, so far where they're at the point of breaking, but they don't quite break. And I feel like this is kind of on the same trajectory as that. So yeah, pretty interesting book. Very strange. Won't be a book for everyone, certainly. Well, no book is a book for everyone. But yeah, I would like to reread that one again now that I know going into it what it's about. Next up, I read The Midnight Timetable by Bora Chung. This one is a really cool concept. It's about this facility that houses a bunch of haunted objects. And you have people that work there that kind of walk the halls, and they have rules that they have to follow. And our main narrator, I guess, is told stories from her boss or her boss's boss, and those are the stories that end up in the book, and they're stories about basically how these haunted objects got there or what happened to the people working at the facility. So it's a very cool concept for a story. However, there's a few things that I didn't love about it. There's not a lot of characters named in this story, so they're told kind of like fairy tales, and it's like, oh, the husband's friend's mother and then her son. And then you go on this whole story and it only says the husband's friend's mother, her son. So for me, it took me a little bit out of the story. I didn't love that part of it. And it's written very straightforward, very plain, very bland, which again, it's like almost feels like a fairy tale, but I didn't love the writing style. Some of the stories were creepy, others just weren't at all. And they kind of come together, but not in a way that felt cohesive enough for this to feel like a novel. And it does, I mean, to be fair, it does say a novel in ghost stories. So it does kind of read like separate stories. and it didn't really feel like a cohesive piece. And I just felt like, I don't know, with how cool the cover is and how interesting the back seemed, I was expecting a little bit more from it, and I just didn't really get that. So I was a little bit bummed with that one. But here's where I need your help, my romance gals. Okay, I read this book right here. It's called Nocticadia by Carrie Lake. This one is a dark, gothic, and atmospheric, dark academic romance, okay? Obviously, I've read dark books, gothic books, atmospheric books before. Not really a dark romance, I don't think, or an academic type book, I don't think, and certainly not one with a morally gray character, which I hear people talking about a lot, but I don't think, at least I can't think off the top of my head, any morally gray characters. But anyway, this one, guys, I went into this one being like, it's 700 pages, and I knew it was a smut book because of who picked this. This was from my girls' book club as well. So I went into it being like, man, this is going to be tough. Oh, by the way, I also listened to this one on audiobook. I did not read it. And this book was so good. It was so fucking good. It was more horror than the books that I've picked for them to read. It's creepy. It's about this girl, and she, I think her name's Lilia. She witnesses her mother dying. Her mother has some weird illness, and she sees like these worms fall from her like mouth, and everyone tells her, you know, it's just your way of coping with your mother's death and blah, blah, blah. She's in college and she's, you know, pretty intelligent, and she has to write a paper about a fake illness. And so she decides to write about her mother. One of the prestigious colleges kind of in her area get wind of it. Her professor send it in to them, and she ends up getting a full ride scholarship. So she goes to this really fucking cool, like gothic-y, creepy school. Think secret societies, think like big, beautiful, you know, gothic buildings, morgues underneath, and secret tunnels, and oh my god, it was so fun to read. So you have all of these different elements, and then she meets her teacher, and his name is Dr. Death, and she develops a little bit of crush on him, and some smutty stuff happens. And you know what? I don't even care. I don't even care. A lot of smut books are just about sex and the relationship between those people, and those I'm not that interested in. But if you have all of this story, 700 pages of this dark, creepy, gory story, I mean, there's a lot of horror elements in here, and then you throw in some smut, I don't care, girl. Do it on the desk, whatever. Like, I was totally fine with the smut in this book. Also, they're like making out in a morgue, and I'm like, I can get behind this. Fictionally, of course. I really like this one. Really, the only thing that I have to say is, like, do we have to use the term slippery seam 20 times in a book? Probably not. But that's really my only criticism. So my question for you dark romance gals is, please leave me your suggestions. If you've read Nocticadia and you have books that are similar to it, please let me know. I want all your morally gray characters. I want the academic shit. I want the gothic stuff. I want the dark romance stuff. I want it all. So please leave your suggestions for me. I would really appreciate it. I think I'm gonna leave a thing on Instagram too to ask, because I would really love to read books like this. This is a whole new genre to me. I'm like, I have never read a book like this before. And this is the thing, like, don't judge a book by its cover. I saw the cover and I thought, oh, this is gonna just be a weird smut book. And it was so fucking good. I loved this one. I loved it. I thought it was great. Then the last two things real quick. I reread these two poetry books as well. I read Emily Dickinson. And it's so interesting rereading a book and seeing the different poems that connected with me this time versus the last times that I read this. So, I mean, obviously I love this bitch. There's some just great poems in here. And then I also, because it was February, I read Pablo Neruda's 20 Love Poems and a Song of Despair. And this is one of my favorite lines just in literature ever. I mean, every time I read this, it kills me. Dry autumn leaves revolved in her soul. Oh, so good. So I do remember reading this in college and having someone say that it has the Spanish version and the English version, and the Spanish just hits harder. So that might be something for those of you who know Spanish, might want to read it. I obviously don't, so I can't say for certainty, but I do enjoy that book. So that's what I read in February, you guys. I read a lot of different genres. I was just kind of all over the place. It was one of my more eclectic months of reading. So yeah, please feel free to leave me your suggestions for some dark romances. Let me know what your favorite and least favorite book of the month is. My highest rating was the Autumn Springs Massacre, Retirement Home Massacre by Philip Fracassi. I think my second highest, Oh guys, I read actually so many books that were above, like between 4.5 stars. Scanlines was 4.5, The Night Guest was 4.5, Played as It Is was 4.5, Nocticadia was 4.5. Like, I loved a lot of books that I read this month. But yeah, the highest was this Autumn Spring's Retirement Massacre. I rated that a 4.8. I know I'm very specific with my ratings. My lowest rated book, I think, was People We Meet on Vacation or The Thursday Murder Club. Those ones both I rated the same. So those were my books of the month. Let me know what you guys read. Thank you so much for hanging out, and I will see you soon with another horror video. Bye guys!